I would say that if I were to write my autobiography, my getting to Amherst would be entitled East Towards Home, as in a movie title for the protagonist. I grew up in Seattle in the 50s and 60s, and Seattle then was a regional city, but a pretty hick town. It was a Scandinavian city, and it was pretty provincial. I had never been east of Montana, so Amherst drew me east for the first time. And because of Amherst, I've spent almost my entire adult life in the Northeast, in New York or Boston, and I feel psychologically and spiritually at home in the East. So Amherst has brought me east towards home.
And here it seems to me the most elementary consideration possible that without the utmost freedom of discussion, without freedom to explore error, we can't arrive at truth. And unless we encourage our scientists, our civil servants, our diplomats, our scholars in every field to discuss and explore every conceivable subject, we have no guarantee against making catastrophic errors of judgment. So that freedom is absolutely quintessential for security.
And Commager was important to me because my parents, for some reason, fell in love with Henry Steele Commager. He came to Seattle and gave some lectures, probably for the ACLU, and my father said, you know, you should go to school where this guy teaches. So I applied to one school where Henry Steele Commager taught, and that's where I went. I think the best anecdote that I can use to describe my journey would be to describe my economics professor from the introductory economics course, Arnold Collery. Professor Collery was Seinfeld 30 years before there was Seinfeld. He was ironic, sarcastic, witty, edgy, New York to the core. I had never seen that. And when I went home the first Christmas vacation, I tried Professor Collery's lines out on many of the people whom I knew in Seattle, and the lines went totally over their head. I'll give you two examples. One is from economics, and one is from political science. The economics example is from my international economics courses. Amherst taught me that free trade was a great thing for the United States and for the world. And I think my economics professors at Amherst would be aghast at what they see from the right and the left in criticizing the North American Free Trade Agreement and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Another example would be from political science. And this gets to one of the reasons I went to Amherst. One of the great courses I took were two seminars from Henry Steele Commager on American intellectual history. And the best seminar of those courses was Commager's session on free speech, specifically on the writings and opinions of Oliver Wendell Holmes and Louis Brandeis. They were poetic in their defense of free speech. I think that Henry Steele Commager would be aghast at the attacks from the right on fake news, truth as fake news, and frankly on the left, on the unwillingness of colleges, some colleges and universities to entertain conservative speakers and conservative professors. So I could say I'm very rigid, but these principles that Amherst gave me have been with me all my life. I would say my years after Amherst have been interesting and mixed. I think my professional journey through life was less successful and less fulfilling than my personal journey. When I graduated from Amherst, I thought that I was really a hot stuff. But then I went to law school, and I was surrounded by people who would become a future president, a future secretary of state, a future national security advisor to the president, the leading Florida corporate attorney to the South Florida mob, and many Wall Street gazillionaires. And I was just plain average. And I'd say my career as a management consultant doing economic analysis was good, but not great. And in my 50s, to quote Jim Bouton in Ball 4, his story of his career as a major league pitcher, I think I was in the twilight of a mediocre career. But luckily I had made some money and come into some money, and so I started investing in a serious way. I got to know many people in the New York investment community and have spent really the last 20 years in a sort of a second career, which I found much more fulfilling and made me much happier. I think my personal journey through life has been, frankly, more rewarding and made me happier than my professional journey. I met my wife at Yale, and I've been married happily for 45 years. That's probably my greatest personal accomplishment. My wife and I have traveled the world from the get-go. We've gone to places that I think many people have not been. It's given me and my wife a global, international perspective, even before the phrase globalism came into fashion. We've collected art, initially just tchotchkes from our trips abroad, but the last few decades, seriously. The last 10 years we've collected almost exclusively modern photographs, and if you'd like, I'll be glad to show you some of the artwork later. And 10 years ago we bought an apartment in Manhattan, and that's been the best money I've ever spent. There was a quote that I learned at Amherst from Dr. Sam Johnson in the 1700s. And he said, when one is tired of London, one is tired of life. And I feel it's true of New York. I think the last thing that is meaningful to me, at least that I've thought about since I realized that I might be interviewed, is the future. You know, I remember hearing one of the people you interviewed say, he's just glad he's here. And I think ultimately that's probably how I feel. I mean, I'm delighted that I'm 71 and still here. Increasingly I have intimations of mortality. I mean, how much longer am I going to be here? And I wonder about, will there be a Kilroy is here for me? I think that hopefully that my wife and I have taken our life's experience and we can pass it on. We've traveled the world and we've established at 2 schools, including Amherst, postgraduate travel fellowships, which will go to students and have them travel the world after college and then report back on their experiences. We've given a fair amount of art to 2 institutions, and we plan to give all our art away and establish funds to buy new art, more art, and hopefully more people will learn what we learned about art and how it's enriched our lives. Amherst wasn't easy in terms of studying or getting quote-unquote good grades. I had to work my tail off. I worked nights, I worked weekends. It wasn't easy, but I think it made me appreciate that if you want something, you have to work hard. And excellence doesn't come easy. Excellence is tough. So I think back at Amherst, and they're not only the principles and that I think I lived my life by, and the intellectual curiosity, but also a lot of anecdotes that still reverberate in my mind.